here if you want to learn more about partnerships. And we talked about government and startup partnerships and working with activists. But now we have a really exciting session ahead, which is all around partnerships for impact and how you can actually find success with corporate startup partnerships. And I'm really excited to introduce you to Daniel Kriozere. He's a partner with Climate Capital and one of the best connected people in climate tech. You should definitely connect to Daniel, especially if you're a climate venture. So great to have you here. And then really excited to welcome as well Thomas Fokker, the co-founder and CEO of Leap. Thomas been on the podcast a while ago, and it's been a really exciting story and journey to watch Leap grow. And I think you got some really good insights to share on how to collaborate and sell and partner with corporates because you've been doing that for a bit. So I'll hand over to both of you and enjoy the session.
Thanks, Maiko.
Yeah, thanks, Maiko. Good to be here. And Maiko, thanks again for having us. I'm really excited, Thomas, to talk with you today. I wear a couple of hats when connecting startups to capital, and my core belief is actually startups could, in theory, do a lot better with finding the right types of corporate partners, maybe in addition to also finding capital. But what I think really brings corporates to light is, it unlocks a partnership. And that partnership can lead to being a customer, and that can also lead to revenue streams. But that's just framing the discussion. I guess briefly, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself and Leap.
Yeah, thanks. And you're right. Partnerships really work well for startups like ours. Leap is a B2B startup, so we by definition work with corporates. What we do is we provide a single interface to energy markets for anyone that wants to buy and sell energy in the open markets. And can compare us a little bit like Stripe, a single API in the backend, providing all the infrastructure that's needed for companies like Google, Tesla to transact. And we've been doing this for the last 4 years or so, and we're live in California and Texas and New York. All these energy markets are different, so our customers, our partners use us to have that single interface to interact with the energy markets.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Thomas. Now that we got that out of the way, before we jump into what I'd like to say, the case study of how you and Leap thought about corporate partnerships, do you have a broader, maybe top-level how-to or a couple steps that it takes to find partners, partner with, actually partnering up, and then the execution?
Yeah, of course. So, I can talk from our perspective, right? We're working in the energy sector, which is heavily regulated, not as much as healthcare, but you can't just, build your product and sell it. That's not how it works, right? If you build a meditation app, you can launch it on the App Store and you just promote the hell out of it, and that's the way you grow. But if you build something for the energy sector, or specifically as a B2B product, you need partners to grow, right? We rely on companies like Google to sell Nest thermostats, and every Nest thermostat that gets activated on our platform becomes our end customer. But that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Google actually promoting, building, and selling that hardware. Well, the only thing we can do is really help make that transition, that experience as seamless as possible. So if you buy a Nest thermostat and you enroll in what's called a rush hour rewards, so Google pays you to help alleviate stress on the electric grid. In many cases, on the back end, that is connected by us, but making that process as seamless as possible is where we really add some benefit. So that's an example for Google, but we also have more larger customers, big battery companies like STEM, more residential, large partners like Sunrun, public companies, private companies. So there's a need in every stage for a company to be helped and partner with. We have playbooks. We have all the tools that you need to integrate with our platform. But in the end, the selling of the equipment is done by our partners, and we just make sure that selling goes as smoothly as possible.
Awesome. So, how did you start off thinking about who to partner with?
Yeah, so it's been for Leap as a journey. We've been operating in the markets for 4 years now. So I have an energy background. I started out working developing offshore wind farms, solar farms, you name it. But now the next challenge is how to integrate all of those renewables into the grid. Right, the battle has won. Renewables are cheapest form of energy, but to safely integrate it into the grid and have electric grids be reliable and energy prices be stable, you need the next challenge, and that is integrating all of those assets into the grid, not just on the supply side, so solar and wind, hydro and other nuclear, other clean energy sources, but then you have to add flexibility on the demand side too. So that's where we're coming from. So who are the largest players in what we call distributed energy resources? So smart thermostats, electric vehicles, batteries, solar, load control, refrigeration, anything that consumes energy and is able to respond to price signals to either reduce their demand or feed back into the grid, is a partner for us. And then of course you're gonna look at who are the biggest player there. So thermostats, Nest, Honeywell, Ecobee, right? So the usual suspects. If you go to electric vehicles, it's Tesla, it's coming Ford, GM, charging infrastructure. So really, we did a very big analysis of the market, essentially defining our TAM, our total addressable market, and then walking back towards, in which markets do we have overlap with our product, as well as a large amount of active users. So we would love to be active in the southeast of the U.S., for instance, in Florida, a lot of air conditioners and smart thermostats, but the market is not developed enough for us to actually participate. It's what's called a vertically integrated monopoly. So we can't provide services. So that is kind of a disqualifier. While in California, where we started out, right, the market is very advanced. We have a lot of renewables here, a lot of smart thermostats, a lot of electric vehicles, and the market is indeed able to deal with companies like ours. So thinking of partnerships, where we wanted to start first, it's really where do we have the most overlap, the most product market fit with our product, and that was California. And it was with the big players that have a lot of aggregation. But over time, we've definitely found out that working with startups that are building new technologies is also a big way to grow for us. So we've been growing from a couple of hundred end customers to over 70,000 right now, and that's all been done through partnerships. Right? We don't have any end customer ourselves. You as a private individual cannot sign up for Leap, but you can buy a Resideo thermostat, for instance, and that could be a Leap-enabled one.
Got it. So it sounds like you really took a holistic approach, looking at the market and overlap, geographies, and product market fit. Is there anything else that you really thought about when figuring out, who might be your first 1, 2, maybe even 3 partners?
Yeah. So it's a good question. So the whole sales cycle. I don't think you should just go after your top 3. You should go after your top 20. And as long as you are able to run that process efficiently, that shouldn't be too hard. What is hard, of course, is selling a service or a technology that either interacts with a big corporate's assets. A big corporate has a public-facing persona. Think of, for instance, smart thermostats, right? If all the smart thermostats would shut down during a heat wave, that would be a terrible PR event for a large corporate. We would definitely help stabilize the grid, but you have to balance those two things out, right? But if you tell 10,000 Nest thermostats to, instead of cooling at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, that's like 18 degrees Celsius, go to 20 Celsius, 74 Fahrenheit for a little bit. That is the difference between the power plant on or off, and that is the and the end customer actually doesn't notice that, and is happy to contribute to the to alleviate stress on the grid. So really explaining how that works, how it actually benefits the experience of the end user, has been a real help for us to get contracts with large corporates. Right? Large corporates are particularly worried about losing the PR, the negative PR, or losing customer appreciation. And if that means that they have to, say no to a guaranteed couple of million of extra revenue, that's fine, right? In many cases, that is not going to move the needle for them. So if you turn it around, and instead of making this about revenue that would not have been typically accrued to them, but really about enhancing the customer's experience, that has been a very successful way to get the attention of large corporates that might not necessarily want to deal with you. And so we've been successful in selling that story, right? If you buy a smart thermostat or electric vehicle, in many cases you do that because you want to save your own electricity bills. But if the added benefit is that you actually help stabilize the grid, in times of stress, that is a big selling point. And we guarantee that within the the approved bandwidth of how much charge can we take from a battery, or how much cooling can we take off the demand before the smart thermostat doesn't allow us anymore, to make the experience very seamless and very enjoyable. We guarantee that will be the case. Partners will drop their any potential barriers you have selling into. And of course, there's also a bit of the FOMO effect. If one player or company is doing it and the competitor isn't, that is a nice way to kind of create a little bit more engagement, because you wouldn't want to be the only electric vehicle producer or seller that doesn't do vehicle to grid, right? So that is a great way also to kind of get the attention of large corporates.
Got it. So you've been talking a lot about large corporates. I mean, obviously, Leap is partnered with Google Nest. What are some of the challenges and opportunities of working with different types of partners? You're talking about large corporates. What about small, medium-sized businesses?
Yeah. Well, the Google Nest is actually a good example, because we're not partnered with them directly, and that's good. That's a good example of a transition. We still like Google Nest. Don't get me wrong, and we know them pretty well. But the way that we've set up our business as a solely B2B platform that doesn't do any of the physical control. The ask from Google was to, hey, Leap, we like working with you, but we changed our participation model. We want you to integrate with us and tell our Nest devices directly how to operate. That was counter to what our business model is. We want to stay neutral, a single interface, but not building one integration over another. So we actually found a way to partner with a company called Energy Hub, and they took over our Nest contracts, and this worked out fine because they were already a partner with Nest. But it also shows you that you shouldn't really change your business model because one of your biggest customers is changing theirs, right? We had big conviction that this is the way that we should operate. If we would have built our own integration with Nest, we would have been competitive with some of our own partners. So we want to avoid that. So this way we found a solution. So it's also a good lesson to show, hey, stick to your business model. Of course, change it when the reality on the ground changed, but it didn't for us. It was one of our largest partners that changed their business model and behavior. We found a way to collaborate, and the success is evident. We've been working this way for the last 2 years, and during the heat wave in California, a large portion of the megawatts that we help take off the grid and actually help maintain or avoid blackouts, which happened a couple of weeks ago in September, was through Nest thermostats. So even if you change, your relationship, that still is a very fruitful and worthwhile way to collaborate.
Got it. Yeah, there's one question in the chat that I think might be good to talk about, and I'll rephrase it. But the question is, how do you know quickly, if a corporate is sincere and truly qualified to work with you? What does that qualification look like? Is it when really to just preserve founders' time, the potential partners' time? Do you have a couple things that you look for, perhaps?
So, well, I mean, I don't think you have to spend a lot on lawyer fees until you get to a term sheet, right? So let's get to terms first. If you that's the easiest and quickest way to get to confirmation on how to collaborate without having to involve expensive lawyers. So I would just have, we operate on, we have standard terms and conditions. That is the T and C's that everyone agrees to. So that's not negotiable. It doesn't have to be, very. It doesn't have to be 2-tome bookwork, but have standard T and C's so you can share that in advance. That's pretty straightforward, right? About consumer privacy, for instance, right? It's things that you legally have to abide by. For instance, we process tons of utility meter data, but we would never sell the private data that's associated with that, even if we get demands for that. So, terms and conditions. Then, for the specific deal that you're talking about with the partner or with the corporate, just get to an agreement on bullet points and term sheets, what do we want to work on, and that's a term sheet that you can draft without having to involve any lawyers, because it's not legally binding yet, but it does commit people to, okay, hey, what are we talking about, right? Timelines, pricing, volumes, expectation, who does what, right? That's all great things you can define in a term sheet. And once that is, signed, and make sure it's signed by the person, in the company that actually has the signing authority. I've seen sometimes deals go sideways because turned out that the person who was super excited about working with you actually didn't have that internal authority. But once you're there, even a non-binding signed term sheet is not something that will be retracted quickly. So I think that's a great thing. It's also a couple of sneaky things you can do, which are totally fine. But instead of calling something a contract, call it a proposal. So it doesn't go through legal. Obviously, in the end, you have to have a contract, but going back and forth on a proposal is much easier than going back and forth on a contract. In the end, you'll need a contract, but that will definitely save you a lot of legal review. And then obviously sometimes facts on the ground change. Just make sure you have the right person championing your product within the partner, within the corporate partner, because if you don't know how the internal operations of the company work, you might figure out that you're on a dead end, for instance. So, but I don't think we've ever completely went down a rabbit hole, lawyers involved, and never got really to a contract. What could happen is that you overestimate the success of your relationship, and then you have massive ideas about bringing tons of volume, and it just doesn't work out. Then you just have to have a real honest chat with your counterpart and either reset your expectations or renegotiate your terms. But that's part of doing business.
Awesome. Well, that about sums up the time that we were given. Thomas, how can people reach you after this conversation?
Send me an email at thomas@leap.energy. Go on our website, leap.energy. Pretty easy to find. I try to be more active on Twitter. I see Maiko and try to take some some pointers there. But yeah, you can find me there too.
Awesome. And then everyone, you can find me on LinkedIn. That will be the best way.
Great.
Amazing. Thanks to you both. Really appreciate sharing those insights. These are really so valuable. I've been on the corporate side. I've been in the corporate accelerator side and the founder side, and these are such important lessons. So thank you both for sharing them. We will be back in just a couple of minutes. So about 3 minutes for the next session on bursting the bubble, building an inclusive climate tech ecosystem. So we already spoke about the role of policy and activism and innovators, but I'm really excited for this session coming up with Nalin Agrawal and James Rigolinsky. So really looking forward to that, and we'll take a brief break and see you back very soon. Bye, guys.
Thanks.